Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the NAL Branch 458 podcast. Today we're just going to be talking about a few things, CCAs and how to protect your route, what to do out there. First, I just wanted to say we just had a lot of tornadoes go through the state. So if there's anyone out there that was affected by that, or you know anyone that was affected by that, you can go on to nalc.org and just click on the member benefits tab, and you can scroll down and you can apply for the Disaster Relief Foundation. So that's pretty simple. You can go on there and just apply for that, and it'll help out anyone that was affected by that. Outside of that, we have someone on the episode with us, and I'll let them introduce themselves.
My name's Eric Robinson. I'm happy to be here with you, Casey. I'm a one of the stewards at 39th Street here in Oklahoma City.
Awesome. So tell us a little bit about what else you do with the union.
For the last 2 years, I've been involved in TIA REIT. I'm one of the REITs, and I get the pleasure of working with Casey up at headquarters, and we do the evaluation, the adjustment of routes. Um, I also get to talk to the new hires sometimes with the union organizing and getting the privilege of kind of getting the first crack at talking with them as a union rep and signing them up to be a member and helping them out. And so, yeah, I do that too.
Yeah, so that's kind of what brings us into the topics what we're going to talk about today. Let's just talk about CCAs first. So that's an entry level position here at the Postal Service. We always like to welcome them. I always did whenever I was in OJI is I would tell them that this is a career, it's not a job. So it's something that they can look forward to for 25, 30 years down the line, and they can treat it a little bit differently than just like their, gas station job or Walmart job or whatever. So it's something that I always like to tell people. Is there any advice that you tell the classes as you're doing those, or
Well, I'll tell
anyone
you this:
listening?
a CCA having that type of perspective coming into this is very important because that way, and I do tell them this in the CCA Academy and the orientation class is they want to have that mindset that they're going to be here for 20, 30 years, and that involves stretching before work. That involves when they have bad days, not letting it get them down, and a grouchy supervisor get under their skin and cause them to quit. Just all the different challenges of our job, that if they start off from day one with a long-term mindset, that this is a career, that it helps them a lot. One thing I'll ask the new hires sometimes is, what brought you to the post office? Why are you here? And I'll hear a variety of things. Some of them tells me it's for the health benefits. I've had people tell me, they've been laid off before and they want the job stability. And so whenever they give me those answers, I just kind of turn around and I go, okay, take that, hold on to it. That way, when it's pouring rain, it's muggy, you had a bad morning at home, you get to work, the boss is cranky, your back's hurting, just on a route you don't know, just all the bad stuff that, Casey, we run into,
Oh,
that they can kind of cling to that and they can remind themselves when they get down and when they think about maybe quitting or anything like that, just kind of hang on to it and use it as motivation.
yeah, and that's something I tell them too. I said, "Hey guys, we don't get paid what we get paid for the crappy days or the good days." I said it backwards. We get paid for what we're worth because of the crappy days. And now I know we're in contract negotiations, and hopefully we get that bumped up. But that's something I always remind them is we get paid pretty well for those rainy days, for the days that you're walking through dew and mud and just stick it out one more day, seek advice from your OJI or from your mentor, from a senior carrier, because the senior carriers in your office know way more tips and tricks than you'll ever come up with on your own. So we just need to lean on each other. So that's a good point.
Well, let me to touch on that. We did the test in Oklahoma City about for the CCA mentorship, and so at my station, I got to do that for 9 months. And whether you're at a station that's still doing that, whether you're from an installation that's never had that test, I would encourage everyone to think about getting some senior carriers, some people that care in your office to kind of take the CCAs under your wing and teach them some of these things that we know management's not going to talk to them about. When it's rain, what do they tell them to do? Move faster.
Yeah.
We had a supervisor who used to tell us to dance between the raindrops, and we
Oh,
always kind of chuckled about it. But you put yourself in the position of a new hire, and it's dumping rain outside. They got red plums in their satchel, and they're being told to dance between the raindrops.
yeah.
It's kind of disheartening. So yeah, absolutely, taking them under your wing, teaching them these things, encouraging senior carriers that how to deal with those elements, encouraging them to get involved and talk to them. It goes a long way. It'll help a lot. And, we don't need CCAs turning over because then it just makes it harder on us. So it benefits everyone for people to get involved and have that mindset with the new hires.
Yeah, for sure. And that advice might get them through their 90 days.
Yeah.
They got to go through a 90-day probation, just like all of us did. So getting through that 90 days is their biggest struggle whenever they first start out, because they're trying to learn how to do everything we do, also while trying to appease management, right? So any tips and tricks that anyone has to help their CCAs get through that 90 days, please do it. Because remember, you were there at one point, and it sounds bad, but we tell them to just be yes men in that 90 days. We want them to follow safety rules, obviously, and we educate as many of them as we can that that's the one instruction that you have a right to say no if it's going to lead to injury of self or others, right? So if you're gonna crash and die, you can say no. We want them to get through their 90 days, be yes men, but definitely work safely.
Yeah, and it's important for us to remember what that probationary period was like for ourselves. When you have a CCA that, messes up your apartment boxes on your day off and you come in, have a little empathy, kind of, potentially cool your jets a little bit before you say something snarky to them. Just, keep it in mind what they're going through, what it was like for you. And yeah, that's important for all of us to remember.
Yeah. Something else I tell every now and then I'll walk by the class and one of the facilitators will ask me to come in and say something to them. And what I usually tell them is something easy that they'll remember is to get a good pair of leather shoes. Because I remember whenever I started, I was just wearing like comfortable running shoes or something that wasn't covered. So whenever you're walking through like do lawns in the summertime, this time of year, your feet are going to be wet most of the day.
Yeah.
So a good pair of leather shoes will last you longer than a pair of running shoes with a like foam sole. So that's one trick that I tell them whenever I talk to them.
Well, I'll say this also. When I speak to them, whether it's in a mentoring role at my station or, whether it's in, academy and they're asking questions, sometimes they'll ask me and they're like, hey, what would you tell a new hire? What's some good advice for us? One thing I'd talk to them about is about stretching. And, I tell them, hey, I'm not a doctor. I can't give you medical advice and whatnot, but it's a known fact that our joints, our feet, our ankles, all of our, shoulders and whatnot, they're going to hurt. They're going to be sore. And for someone that comes, from a totally different career field, maybe somebody that worked in an office their whole life, or someone that's been in retail, even if they're used to standing potentially, they're not used to walking on uneven terrain, you know, 5, 6, 7, 8 hours a day. And so I talked to them about maybe even getting on YouTube and on their own time, looking up some YouTube videos on simple at-home exercises to help strengthen your legs. I know a
Yeah.
physical therapist once told me when you brush your teeth, stand on one leg for 90 seconds and then switch legs as you're brushing the bottom part of your mouth.
Yeah.
Another 90 seconds. That stabilizes the ligaments and the muscles around your knee. And so I just encourage them to jump on YouTube, find little things like that that'll make a big difference. Um, I definitely talk to them about, yeah, like when it's raining, they're not used to going up and down porches all day. And as well as I do, when they paint those suckers,
Oh
I
yeah.
mean, it's like an ice rink. Um,
Or the tile porches.
Yeah, yeah, I
They are
definitely wiped
slippery.
out a couple times on that. So, yeah,
Yep.
and with summer, let me say one more thing. With summertime coming up, if you're a new CCA listening to this, or you're someone else that is maybe you're a little bit more seasoned, warn them about the heat, and don't just tell them to drink water. I mean, that's not going to cut it. Go into some detail with them. Tell them what you do yourself to combat the heat. I know myself, I'll bring a cooler on wheels, fill that sucker up with ice. I put water in it. I put a couple towels. That way, throughout the day, if I'm starting to get too warm, I can wet myself down. I can also keep my drinks cool in there. I even tell them that if they're broke, which a lot of our new hires are, because maybe they were unemployed, before they started here, I tell them you can just go to Walmart, spend $2, get one of those big, like 5-gallon ice bags you see in the freezer section. When I was a CCA, I used to fill up a jug of water, put it in there in the freezer at night, have it frozen, and then that next day I'd keep it in that bag and just slowly melt all throughout the day. So even if somebody can't, afford a Yeti or whatever, no matter their situation, they can get something to keep cool drinks and ice with them. I tell them about the sunscreen. That was one thing I never thought about brand new.
Yeah.
Because I'd always worked indoors. And electrolytes. Management, I mean, they might have the Gatorade in the break room, but eating well the night before, just all the things that we know, like really make sure we're telling our new hires that stuff. Because to us, I've been doing it 8 years. Casey, how long you been here?
It going on 8 years.
Yeah, to us it's second nature. To them, this is a new daunting task that
Yeah.
they're undertaking, and I want them all to succeed.
Yeah, for sure. And just to touch on that a little bit, in Oklahoma City anyway, all the stations should be getting the Gatorade, the concentrated Gatorade in the pumps. And that's something that you can just pump into your water. I don't recommend drinking only that. So you need to drink electrolytes and water throughout the day. There's also like tablets you can buy on Amazon or go to a Amazon or Dick's Sporting Goods or Academy, and
Yeah.
it's Noon, Nuun or Noon, and you just pop those tablets in there, and that's a good electrolyte supplement. But you don't want to drink just Gatorade or just Powerade, and I know it's hard. I drink them too, but you want to stay off the energy drinks, stay off the caffeine. It's very bad in the heat. Um, try to stay away from the alcoholic beverages in the evening because your hydration starts the day before. It really does. So that's a good point. Something else I wanted to talk about is CCA's reporting requirements. So it just recently got brought up about CCAs being told to report for Amazon Sunday at a certain time. Let's just say 9 o'clock, just for the sake of talking about it. And they get a phone call the morning of, and they say, "Hey, we don't need you here till 10." So we're not required to answer our phone. They don't pay for our phone. We're not on standby. We're not on call. So if they tell you to be at work at a certain time, let's just say on Saturday, you're working, they tell you, hey, we need you at such and such station, be there at 9 o'clock. I would be there at 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
I know whenever I was a CCA, I didn't answer my phone. I actually had my station blocked, which you may not want to do that. It might cause more problems for yourself than it's worth. I know it definitely did for me, but just keep that in mind. If they tell you to be there at 9, you're like, hey, I'm a reliable. I'm gonna be there on time, so I will be there at 9 o'clock. When you show up at 9 o'clock, I'm ready to start working. So if they don't have work for you, then you got to follow their instructions. They tell you to wait till 10, that's fine, but put in to see your steward as soon as you're back to your station. And that helps stewards to fight to get you paid for that hour. They told you to report at 9, you show up at 9.
Yeah, it's not our responsibility to manage the schedule or to do their scheduling for them or participate in that. And if like what Casey said, if they call you and they're like, "Hey, you don't got to come in," or "You don't have to come into a certain time." I mean, there's two ways to look at it. When I was a CCA 8 years ago, it was a little different. If we got one day off a month, we were lucky. I mean, you remember that. And so if they called me I was like, oh, absolutely, I'm not going in. Nowadays, it's a little different at pretty much everywhere. I mean, they're getting a day off, once a week now as a new hire as a CCA. And so that's your guaranteed time. That's your guaranteed money. For me, Sunday delivery, Amazon was the easiest day of the week. I didn't have to, do a new route I wasn't familiar with. I didn't have to deal with, just a lot of that stuff. I just had a truck full of packages and I enjoyed it. Um, I will say one thing. You mentioned something about a block, blocking the number of your station or some
Yeah.
supervisors. Here's what I got to say about that. Maybe some advice I can give to some newbies out there. My station, I had a real good experience as a CCA. I got along well with the management. They were not what I would consider abusive. And so I was kind of fortunate with that. If you do work in a situation where, you're out on your route and the supervisor, is calling you 1 o'clock, hey, what's taking so long? What are you doing? You need to hurry it up. You need to get your giddy up on. And then, 30 minutes later, they're calling you again. And then 30 minutes later or 15 minutes later, they're calling you again. One
Yeah.
time I worked on the other side of town. It was maybe Southeast Station or something. And I literally had them calling me every 20 minutes wanting an update on what street I was on.
Yeah, and that speeds you up, right?
Yeah, 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 yeah. That really helped. We don't have to, no one has to put up with that. And if you're in that situation where that's starting to happen to you, by all means, turn your phone off, block their number. Having a cell phone and answering it is not part of our job requirements. But when you're on board, hidden, hired, and they tell you, what's expected of you, nowhere in there does it talk about a cell phone. Um, I never blocked my station because, I didn't have the need to. But yeah, if you're in a situation where they're doing that, by all means, don't let them use your personal phone.
Yeah.
That's your own. They can pay your bill, then they can use it. If
Yeah.
they don't pay your bill, then they don't gotta, you don't have to answer.
Yeah, we do have a scanner and they can communicate with you on that and you can text back. So that's something that I utilized whenever I was a CCA for sure. Something else, hold downs. When can CCAs put hold downs on routes? And just to say what a hold down is, that's whenever, let's say, someone in your office is going on vacation for more than 5 days, or you have a route that goes vacant for more than 5 days, or someone is out sick or on OWCP, they're injured and they're gone for more than 5 days. It is eligible to be put a hold down on it. So a CCA can effectively carry that route as their assignment, and that's called a hold down. So CCAs can put hold downs, and you would just fill out a 13, ask management for a PS Form 13, and you fill that out, and you just say, I would like to put a hold down on Route 1, starting tomorrow, which it'll be immediate. I always put a start date on there just to kind of memorialize it on the 13, and you have management sign it so that you can prove that it was turned in, and you always want to keep a copy of that. CCAs can start doing that after 60 days from their hire date. And your hire date, that includes all your training. So, all your classroom time, the day that you get hired, 60 days from then, calendar days, you can put a hold down on a route.
Yeah, it's any day that you're in a pay status. And so orientation, CCA Academy. And, one of the benefits of the hold down is you're going to know what you're doing every day. You're going to know what station you're at every day. And that's important. Um, I didn't put in a lot of hold downs as a CCA when I was, pretty new. And I was sent all over the city. What do we have? 14, 16 stations
I think
in
it's
our,
14.
yeah. I know all of Oklahoma City's territory because of, my time as a CCA and me not putting in hold downs. But if you're tired of getting farmed out to other stations, look at the leave list, that they have posted. Ask, if they don't have it posted, ask the steward or your supervisor where it's posted at. Look at who's going to be off, in the coming weeks. Look at what routes they are. Maybe there's one of those routes that you like more than one of the others. And then do what Casey said. Form 13, fill it out, get them to sign it, get a copy of it. That way, if while you're on the hold down, anybody tries any funny business, which I've seen before, and I'm saying, oh, you don't have a hold down, we don't have a record of it, you can go to your locker, you can go to the trunk of your car, the bottom of your lunchbox, wherever you want to tuck it, pull it out and say, yeah, I do. And so, yeah, I would encourage all the CCAs to put in hold downs when you can. You'll enjoy doing the same route every day, and it'll also help you get better at the job. Especially if you're on that last leg of your 90-day probation. Uh, Having the consistency of the same route every day, it'll just you'll enjoy it, and it's good for the post office too, because that way, we got a consistent carrier on the route while someone's out on leave or vacation or WCP.
Yeah. I know whenever I was a CCA, I was trying to get as many hours as I could. So whenever I did not have a hold down, they were only giving me 4 hours a day or close to it because that's all I'm guaranteed to get in Oklahoma City. And so I did hold downs out of necessity just to get the hours. So that's something that I don't know how it is now. I think they're all getting hours. But that's another reason you would want to put a hold down. But like Eric was saying, it's consistency. You're able to do the same thing day after day. Now that does not mean that you get the day off on the route. on that day off, you're not going to be carrying that route, but management may have you carrying a different route. So just because you're on a hold down on that route, you assume its schedule. And if it has, let's just say it has a Tuesday off, that doesn't mean you're going to have Tuesday off guaranteed. They may have you carry a different route on that day. So keep that in mind. Something else to keep in mind is hold downs. Whenever you put them in, you're on that route, and there's really no way to back out of those hold downs. Usually they don't last very long. It's usually, like I said, a carrier's on vacation or they're out for a couple weeks for whatever reason. But once you put that hold down in, you're on it. The only other option you got is to request to be on a higher level detail. But those are usually temporary too, and once those are done, you're right back on the hold down.
And for those that don't know, the higher level detail would be like if a floater, was on vacation for a week, and then you can, request for management that they assign you to that float. And also, when you're on that, you're entitled to the higher level pay. For any CCAs, you look at the NALC pay chart, the bottom left-hand corner where it's got the CCA pay. There's also a category there for higher level pay for CCAs, and that's for any of y'all that are assigned to a floating assignment. You can't bid on a floating assignment, but they can assign you to it.
Yeah, or you can request. It's ultimately up to management, but request it or be assigned it. Moving on from CCAs, we wish you guys the best of luck and welcome to the team. Um, but really, what Eric and I have been doing for close to 2 years now is route adjustments. So that's kind of what sparked our interest in doing this episode is talking about just some issues that we've seen from doing these route adjustments in these close to 2 years, and some of the problems we see where carriers are not doing things the right way, or they just have an opportunity that they're missing to do it the right way, and they're just missing that time on their route. So I guess we'll call it route protection. Um,
Yeah, there's two things in theory. Um, you can have time deducted, and I also refer to something as time lost, time that you could have had on your route, but because you're maybe not doing the job correctly, or you're not taking the time to do every step of the job, um, that's time that could be credited towards your route that you're not going to get. Um, and what I mean by that, like with losing time, let's say you have an apartment complex, Casey, and um, you're not getting the rent rolled each month, and you're not doing the maintenance on the boxes. You're not putting the vacant cards in. You're not cleaning the boxes out. That takes time.
yeah,
And you don't want to wait once every 6 months, to request 2 hours of overtime and go clean it all out. You want consistency. And to your reap, when we see consistency, that is great news for that route and for that letter carrier.
oh yeah,
And you will avoid losing, that time, if you want to call it, by doing things, like that with your apartments, old folks' homes, any type of, cluster box, centralized delivery like that. Every day, take 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes, whatever, you're the pro on the route, your assignment. If you got, 30 boxes, do one box a day or, a couple boxes a day. By the time you get to the end of the month, time for a new rent roll. Go in
yeah,
there, put a new name card in if you have new tenants. Um, that's one way people lose time. Comfort stops, not taking them. I know you've seen this, Casey. We will be looking at routes, and we'll even, have a consultation with the carrier during the inspection week, and we ask them, how many comfort stops a day do you take? And time after time, I'll have carriers tell me, oh, I don't. Or just on lunch, or just on my break, or I do
yeah,
that when I get back to the office. Brother, if I'm going to be out there for 8 hours in the day, especially if it's going to be slightly warm and I'm going to be getting sweaty, I'm going to be drinking some water. I might have an energy drink in the morning. I might, have a soda with my lunch. I'm not going to hold it 4 hours till I get back to the station.
yeah,
And so these routes that are not, taking advantage of our ability to have comfort stops, they're just losing out on that time. You take an 8 hour assignment and, you just hold it the whole time. Well, comfort stop's probably going to be anywhere from 7 to 15 minutes on average. You got to drive to 7-Eleven, you got to stop, by one of your businesses and then drive back to where you're out on the route. That adds up. And so, I'm not encouraging anyone to just take comfort stops if they're not needed, just to add time to the route. But what I'm talking about is if you need to go, if you need to use them, do it. And then every day, if you're consistently, doing a comfort stop when you need to, that's going to add time into your route so that when the Tier comes to town, when the REITs are looking at your data, they're going to see that, oh, okay, hey, Mr. Robinson, 2 to 3 times a day stops at these different locations. And each time that's 5, 6 minutes. Well, that right there is 15 to 18 minutes added into my route for something that I need time for that some carriers are just completely losing. And sometimes it's because they feel pressure from management for not, quote unquote, making the numbers. I've had carriers tell me that I don't have time.
Yeah.
I can't get the work done if I was to be taking comfort stops and going, because there's not one near my route. It's not your problem, brother and sister. That's management's problem. If they don't like you driving, to the closest, cleanest bathrooms, then they can slap a porta potty in your LLV. And until they do that, you drive to where you got to go.
Yeah, and even worse, there's carriers out there. I hate to admit it, but there are carriers out there that are going in a container in their truck, in the back of their truck. And not only is that unsanitary, but you could probably get in some legal action if you get caught doing
Yeah,
that. Let's just say your supervisor or God forbid a little kid comes up and just opens your door for no reason. You're back there literally with your pants down. That is not something we want to do. And kind of going back to what I said when we first started this episode, this is a career. This is something that you can last 30 years here and you can blow it over something that is stupid.
yeah.
Just drive to the closest, cleanest restroom. That's what's in our LMOU in Oklahoma City. And that's pretty standard practice with everywhere we've seen in our district in Arkansas and Oklahoma is as long as you're going to the closest, cleanest restroom, you're going to be okay. And like Eric said, we're not advocating that you go out of your way to use the restroom, uh, just to add time to your route, is what I mean. If you got to go, they cannot stop you from going. And just to cite something from the M39 Management's Handbook in 242, reasonable comfort stops will not be deducted from the carrier's actual time. And that's something that we have to cite to management all the time whenever we're doing evaluations. If the carrier has to go, they got to go, and it cannot be unreasonably denied. So, what does that mean? So, if, like Eric's saying, your closest, cleanest restroom one way is 5 minutes away, that's automatically 10 minutes right there. And
Yeah,
then let's,
without even going inside. five
yeah,
minutes there, 5 minutes back.
and so that's just travel time. That's your closest restroom. Like, we cannot help that. So then you got to go in and use the restroom. So if you're in there for an hour and 15 minutes, that's not reasonable, guys. But if you're in there, let's just say what's reason. I'd even go as far as to say 7 to 10 minutes is reasonable. But that there's no clear cut. There is no standard for things on the street, so that's why it's kind of hard for us to talk about it. But it definitely strikes a conversation when you get up there closer to 20, 30, 40 minutes. It gets kind of hard for us to say what is reasonable and what's not reasonable.
And I'll say this, we don't see that often. It's so rare that you see someone taking um, an odd amount of time for comfort stops consistently. Everybody's going to have that day where you had chili dogs the night before. You know where I'm going with this.
Yep.
And you're going to be at a longer comfort stop. That's okay. That happens. Don't stress about it. But it's just you don't want to be seeing 6 times a day, 20 different, or, 6 times a day, 20-minute comfort stops to where, 2.5 hours on your route, you're in the 7-Eleven bathroom. You're not going to get to keep that time in your route.
Yeah.
But for 99% of the carriers, no one's getting time deducted for their comfort stops. It's just a matter of, in a sense, they're losing that time because they're not taking them.
Yeah. Yeah. They're
You don't get an
y-
award for saving the post office 6 minutes for, going in a bottle. And I know that's, for some people that might be uncomfortable to hear us talking like that. Me and Casey, both on T-Reap, we have carriers and confidence tell us this. It's happening everywhere.
yeah.
So if you see a new hire that seems stressed and you even hear them remotely talk about, going in a bottle or whatever, approach them with empathy. Remember, what it was like to be stressed and be in that CCA probationary period. but then at the same time, encourage them and let them know, hey, you can go somewhere. You don't got to be doing that.
Yeah. Yeah, we get it. It's in their handbook, so it cannot be unreasonably denied. And it's worth talking about. We're not talking about them taking pay away from anybody or anything like that. Whenever we say deducted from your route, we're talking about evaluating routes and adjusting them to 8 hours. So we're looking at data over an 8 week period of time that is a span of a year. So we don't look at June, July, or August because those are low volume months. And then we also don't look at December. So if you take out 4 months of the year, you're left with eight months, and there's 1 week in each of those months. So that's what I mean by it's over a span of 1 year. So whenever we're looking at it and we're talking about uh, deducting it from the route, we're talking about things that are just abnormal that don't happen every day. So if like it was chili dog night, like Eric was talking about, and you're in the restroom for 4 hours one day, that's not a normal day. And we don't see it at all for the rest of the 8 weeks. We're probably just not going to look at that day because that's not a representation of your route, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. And to keep in mind, so, initially I was speaking about, losing time by things that you're not doing that you should be doing or could be doing. But Casey just mentioned, the other way, the other thing that involves time is the deduction of time. So an example of how you're going to get time deducted from your route, you're going out, you're clocking for 8 hours every day. You think you have an 8 hour route, right? But then when T-Reap looks at your data, they notice that every time you take your lunch, you drive into a restaurant for 5 to 6 minutes. You're at the restaurant for 30, or if you got a couple of minutes of wash up time built into your LMOU, like we do here in Oklahoma City, it's 33 minutes. So you're at Hardee's for 33 minutes, Carl's Jr., whatever. And then you drive 5, 6 minutes back. If you're doing that every day, that's 10 to 12 minutes that gets taken away because you have to include your travel time in with your lunch.
Yeah.
Like that's the rules. Like, we don't have that option. And even if your supervisor's not noticing it, or if because, they're happy with how you do your route, that they're not saying nothing to you, or even if they know about it and they're just looking the other way, when TREAP, the route inspection team's looking at that, we have to deduct that time. We don't have an option. Our counterpart in management's going to take one look at that and go, whoa, whoa, whoa. Route 12 does not get a 52-minute lunch every day.
Yeah.
And we may tell them, well, hey, they were only there for 32 minutes, 33 minutes. Yeah, but they had 16 minutes of travel time. And so that's one way that I know I've seen carriers lose time that they're not thinking about because it's only a few minutes here and there, but every day it adds up. Um, another, if you don't mind, Casey, I'll say another couple things about how you get time deducted. Um, long stationary events that cannot be explained. Now, if you're in an II and they're like, hey, Ritchie, Casey Ritchie, what are you doing over here? What's taking so long? What's something you might tell them?
I'm working.
You're working. That works great for an II. Okay. With T-Reap, that may not work as well. And what this will mean is if you're looking at a route, maybe they got 20 walk-in splits. And then at the beginning of each split, maybe someone's taken 5, 6, 7 minutes stationary at their truck. You see the scanner moving down the street, going up to each mailbox or delivering the mail. They come back to the vehicle. You may have another 3, 4, 5, 6 minutes there where the scanner's not moving. Then you move to the next street. If you're doing that every single street consistently every day, you're going to have the two T-REAP members, one union, one management, taking a look at that, and someone's going to say something.
Yeah.
They're going to be like, whoa, 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 why does he need 15 minutes every street, to what, get his mail ready? And so then they have a consultation with you. They ask the carrier, well, what are you doing over here? Sometimes I'll hear, I don't know.
Yeah.
Give me something. What do you mean you don't know? Like you're there for, you know, 9 minutes, 12 minutes. Like what are we doing? Occasionally that's going to happen. Occasionally your DPS is going to be out of order, right? Occasionally you're just going to be loaded down with spurs and maybe they got knocked over and you're having to reorganize them. But you will get time deducted if consistently throughout your day you have these spots where you're stopped, you're not working, it's showing on the scanner that the scanner's not moving, and you cannot explain it in a reasonable way. And this isn't about being nitpicky. This isn't about, well, hey, you were over here for 45 seconds, longer than what the average is. What are you doing? It's just some of the outliers. It's not all the routes, but occasionally we will see on some of these routes where you have these long stops. You talk to the carrier, and it just doesn't make sense. They're like, oh, I don't know, or getting my mail ready. You
Yeah.
don't get 2 hours a day to get your mail ready on the relays. I would love if we had a 10-minute break at the end of every walk and split.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen. So those are just a couple of the ways where you get time deducted. What are some other ways, Casey? Is there any other things that you, off top of your head, that they might get deducted besides travel time with lunch and long stationary events that they can't really explain?
No, I think that kind of, I'll probably think of it as we
Those are
go.
the two biggest, though.
Yeah, those are the biggest ones. And not that we're just out there trying to slash routes or anything. We're definitely not doing that. We're advocates for you guys. We're city carriers ourselves, so we know exactly how it is. And those stationary events, I think what, a better way uh for us to help you is to help us out in those consultations. So whenever we ask you like, hey, can you explain what you're doing here? I'm showing an 8-minute stop after this walking split, and there's no scans. You didn't really move anywhere. Can you let us know what's going on? And if you tell us, oh, I was working, like he said, that's a little bit different than an II. We're trying to seek out the truth of what you're doing. So help us out. My next portion of this delivery is mounted, and I have to move the mail from the back of my truck to the front of my truck, which is something that everybody should be doing. Whenever you are on a walking split, your mail should be in the back of your truck, and that middle sliding door should be closed. That's something that we need to do. And then vice versa. If you're on mounted and then you're going to go to walking, you should definitely move your mail to the back of the truck, lock the doors.
And let me add some clarification there with what I said. I'm talking about these things with you today, Casey, to kind of give people a heads up, almost potentially maybe even a warning for some people, something to look out for, so that you don't lose time on your route when when you otherwise shouldn't. And so, when I'm saying about the stationary events, this time that's there, I get that sometimes, our job takes us longer than what some people might think at a park point. And that's fine. It takes what it takes. That's still the same like it always has been. It's just that I guess I'd say I want people to know that if your station's going to go through Tier, and if they're going to be looking at your route, these are the things that the route adjusters are going to be looking out for. And instead of, having to take, 4, 5, 6 minutes at every relay at your park point getting your mail ready, are you spending enough time in the morning loading your truck and getting organized? So that, that's part of what our office duty and load truck time in the morning is. Don't let management fool you and tell you that you only have, so many minutes to do your office duties. Hey, DOAS says that you got, 52 minutes today. You got to be out. It takes what it takes. And if it's going to take you longer than that, let them know. Use that office time to get your mail cased, case in your spurs, to get your spurs organized. Then when you clock to the street, you don't have 22 minutes. If you're being told at your station that you have to be loaded and gone in 22 minutes, they're lying to you. It takes what it takes. And I tell my carriers at my station at 39th Street, um, if it takes 4, 5, 6, 10 more minutes to get organized properly and you're working, use that time.
Yeah.
Because then what's going to happen is you're doing the duties you're supposed to do during the time that you're allotted, load
Yeah.
time, office time. Then when you're on the street, you're delivering the mail that you've already got organized. If you spend 8 minutes loading your truck and then go spend 7 minutes at every report point organizing it throughout the day, I'm here to tell you, you're going to lose that time. And there's not a lot that we can do about it. Because when our counterpart looks at that on the map, and then when we ask you the question, what are you doing? And it's like, going through my DPS, like, for 9 minutes, the way to get around that is work at a nice, comfortable pace. Don't, work hard. What is it, Casey? Fair day's pay,
For fair days
fair day's work.
work.
And so, none of that's changed. It's just I don't want to see people lose time out on their walking splits if they could be spending more time in the morning in the office and loading, doing what they're supposed to be doing anyway. It'll make your day easier, first of all. It'll allow you to, not have to stress looking for that package and, oh, where did it go? I'm on Second Street. I can't find this next one. If you get organized properly in the morning, you're not going to have that. You're not going to lose the time into your reap, and you'll live happily ever after.
Yeah, organization is key. Something that you said is it takes what it takes. That is certainly true out on the street, and it's kind of true in the office. So let's just take a step back and let's talk about office times real quick.
Okay.
Just while you're in the office, it's the only time that we actually have standards. It's 18, 8, and 70. Some of you may have heard of it. Some of us kind of glaze by that, and you may never know what that means. So just to talk about what 18, 8, and 70 means is whenever you're casing your mail at your case in the morning, you have the 18 standard is you can case 18 letters in a minute. The 8 is 8 flats in a minute, and the 70 is whenever you're pulling down all of your mail, you have to pull down 70 pieces in a minute. So 18, 8, and 70. And so they calculate that, and that's kind of how they formulate your DOIS numbers, right?
Yeah.
So whenever they're going around, they have a yardstick. They're not actually counting your pieces. So we don't have those Bed Bath and Beyond things anymore. But remember how like real thin those were?
Yeah, paper thin.
You could
Nightmare.
have the entire route would have those, and it's only like an inch thick. Or you could have U lines, and that's like stacked as tall as we are. And that's your whole route. So if they have a yardstick, that's why we always say DOIS is just a projection tool. Management thinks that that it's the holy grail, and to carriers, it really doesn't mean anything to us. So whenever you're in the office, your posted leave time should be on the side of your case. That is your base office leave time. And so we only have two requirements whenever we're in the office as far as reporting requirements in our handbook. And that's to let management know when we're not going to make our posted leave time and when we're going to go over 8 hours for the day. So those are our only two requirements. If you're not going to do that, you need to let management know, fill out a 3996, tell them this is why I need extra time. I'm going to go over my office time, whatever the case may be. But you definitely want to do your office duties in the office. So let's talk about spurs a little bit. Spurs are considered flats. So that is something that we work in the office on office time. So if you can, you should be casing your spurs. If they don't fit, of course, you're going to put them in order in the office on office time. That's not something you do in load time. That's something you do in office time, and then out on the street, whenever you clock to street, you're doing your load truck, and that's just parcels. And then, of course, you're moving all the trays, your DPS, your flats, and then your spur stuff. So let's talk about fixed office time.
Okay.
Uh, your fixed office time. First thing you do as soon as you clock in, I think everybody does it. You go out to the park or you get your keys, right? And you go out there and you do your vehicle check.
Vehicle check.
So the minimum for vehicle check,
3 minutes.
3 minutes,
It's not the maximum.
not the maximum. None of these are maximums, guys. They are all minimums. Now, a vehicle check does not mean that you stand outside of your driver door, turn the key, make sure it starts, shut it off, and go back inside. That I mean that may take you a minute and a half to do because you got to clock to the street. Or no, you're on office time. You walk out there. So was that 30 seconds?
Yeah, depending where
So,
you're parked.
and then you open the door another 10 seconds, and then you reach in, turn it on. So you're at a minute and a half. You still got to check your lights, your fluids, look under the vehicle, walk all the way around it. Like there is so many things you got to do. And if you're doing it right, then it's going to take you more than 3 minutes.
Yeah, yeah. So, if I get a little frustrated whenever I hear people talking about, the vehicle checks, and then I think about how many times at my station I'll be doing my vehicle check, and I either see people not doing it at all, doing it before they clock in, which you definitely don't want to do. Walking in there, like Casey said, standing outside, turning the key, honking the horn if they decide to honk the horn, and then going inside. Um, eh, you're losing time. That goes back to what I mentioned earlier about losing time. That is fixed office time that you're guaranteed to be able to do one of our jobs is to inspect the vehicle. Check your mirrors. Grab a buddy from the route next to you who's hopefully also checking his vehicle and check each other's mirrors for each other. Sit in the
Yeah.
driver's seat, look out the left, see if you can see him giving you the thumbs up sign. Look in the right mirror, see if you can see him giving you the thumbs up sign. And if not, step out and go like, hey, hang on a second, let me, readjust this. There might have been somebody on your day off using your vehicle and they may have readjusted the mirrors. You don't want to skip this step. Get out on your route, maybe be pulling into a busy intersection, glance up and go, oh, shoot, I can't see, what's in my blind spot because I didn't check the mirror. Walking around the vehicle, making sure there's no damage on it. That's part of what you're going to want to do with your inspection. If once again, if somebody on your day off or on Amazon Sunday used your vehicle potentially, and maybe they got in a wreck and didn't report it, you get out on your route. 3 hours later, you walk around the left side, and all of a sudden you see this big gash in the side of the vehicle. You may be the one held responsible for that
Yeah.
because you didn't report it to management in the morning when you're supposed to be doing your safety check.
Yeah.
Looking under the vehicle, seeing if there's leaking oil. Nobody wants to get out on their route 45 minutes and then break down, and then have to wait for someone to come get you. When you do your vehicle check in the morning, you can avoid all that and it will be more efficient. And, that's part of our job. That's why they want us to do it. So yeah, vehicle checks real important.
Yeah, and especially if you're driving an LLV. How many of have you seen those posts of LLVs catching on fire?
Yeah.
I mean, I can think of at least half a dozen times,
Yeah.
probably more. But
Way,
so,
way more than I want to see on Facebook and whatnot.
yeah, so if we're only seeing it on Facebook, of course that means it's happening a lot more. But a number one cause of that happening is probably wire issues, some leaks that weren't reported. So all that stuff can be identified in your vehicle check. And it's part of our fixed office time. It's guaranteed time that we get to do this stuff. So that's just one part of fixed office time. What else do we get? We get 6 minutes of accountable time. So that's whenever if you still have a clerk go around give you guys your accountables, or if you have to go to the cage and actually sign out for it, you're getting your certifieds if there are any. You're getting CODs, express mail, your arrow keys. All that stuff is accountable time. And what's also included is in that is filling out the 3849. Whenever you're in the office, it's either you put the customer's name or their address on the 3849, one or the other, but you get time to do that in the office within this 6 minutes of accountable time. And again, that's a minimum. So, of course, if you're only getting one certified letter and you have arrow keys, you don't need the 6 minutes. We're not saying stretch it for 6 minutes. We're saying you get a minimum of 6 minutes no matter what, guaranteed.
Yeah, so if you have a day where you get a larger than normal number of signature required parcels or postage due or things like that, you have the time built in for you to be able to go back to your case, pull those left notice slips out, and start to partially fill it out like we're allowed to, and then to case that in.
Yeah. Um, so 5 minutes to withdraw mail. That's guaranteed. That's like pulling from your hot case. If you guys have three-sided is what they call them, where they put flat, the clerks put all the flats. You get time to withdraw that mail. I want to say that breaking the straps on all of your stuff is included in that also. So whenever you're loading your ledge up and you're taking the plastic off of the bound matter, the stuff that's in order, I want to say that's included in there. I'm not 100%, but I'm pretty sure. Uh,
That
that's
sounds right.
that's a minimum of 5 minutes. Next is 9 minutes of office work. So that's what we call line 21 item. That's what it is on the 1838C. Whenever you're getting an office count, that's the form number they use, and it's a line item 21. So all other office work, so filling out your change of address, those pink slips that you put in the bottom right-hand corner of your case, it's actually at the end of each
Each
shelf.
row, yeah.
So filling those out, if you have anything else, stand-up talks you do daily, filling out the 3996, dealing with management telling you what your numbers are, just any of that random stuff that doesn't necessarily have a category within fixed office time, you get a minimum of 9 minutes to do those things. Uh, Next is 5 minutes of personal needs time. Now that we call personal needs, out on the street when you need to use the restroom. If you got to use the restroom in the office, use the restroom. I don't think I'd say that's part of your personal needs. It sure it can be part of that, but in the M41 it says like going to the locker room, getting rain gear, obtaining things from the swing room, which I think here in Oklahoma City, I don't think we have swing rooms, or at least we don't call them swing rooms.
I don't even know what a swing
Um,
room is, if I'm
I,
being honest with you.
I think it's the same as a
A
locker room.
locker room, okay.
So,
Put the stuff in the
y-
locker room.
yeah, if you got to go get your satchel out of your locker, which really your satchel should be hanging on your case ledge, there's a hook for that. Um, you got to get anything out of your locker. Let's say a coat, rain gear, boots, any of that.
Sunscreen.
Sunscreen. That is included in your 5 minutes of personal needs. So with all of that, those are all minimums. That leaves us with 28 minutes of fixed office time. So where's the other 5 minutes? Because we get 33 minutes of fixed office time.
Afternoon.
That's in the PM. So this is something that management has kind of tried to brainwash us for years, since I've been here, that we only get 5 minutes in the PM. And that is not true. That's a minimum. If it takes you longer than 5 minutes to do your PM office duties, it takes you longer than 5 minutes. That 5 minutes is a minimum. So we need to make sure we're doing what we're supposed to do. And I'm not sure if we can really get into it in this podcast because SOPs are slightly different at different offices, but you're definitely going to make sure that you, uh, of course, on street time, you've emptied your truck. There's nothing left in your truck. So whenever you are on office time, you want to make sure you put all that mail in the appropriate place, and you don't have any undeliverable mail at your case unless it's like hold mail or you have a 1571 on it. That's the slip that management signs that it's okay for you to leave undeliverable mail at your case. So that leaves us with 33 minutes.
Let me touch on something real quick before we go on with this afternoon office time. Um, I understand what you were saying, a minute ago about, in the office, it takes what it takes can be a little different because of 18.8 and 70. Carry that mentality with me though throughout my whole postal day, and this really in the afternoon. There are some times when I come back, it only takes me 2, 3 minutes to do my PM office duties. Perfectly fine. No problem there. I'm doing my
Yeah,
work. It takes what it takes. There have been other times where it will take me 7, 8, 9 minutes because maybe I had a lot of dog holds this day where I had multiple houses with dog holds. I got to write a statement for management about, a dog coming after me that day. I got vacation holds I need to put away. Um,
it
you,
might
you
have
know,
been certified day. You had 40 certifieds that day.
correct at a complex or something. It could be the what was that, Butch Cassidy or
Butch Freeman.
Butch Freeman.
Yeah.
Those in Oklahoma City, they're listening. You know what terror that can be. And so you have these things. And so you may ask, well, what do I do if I can't get it done in 5 minutes? You keep working and you do it. And if management is like, hey, you need to hurry up and clock out and get out of here. I've asked them before, no problem. I'll clock out right now. What do you want me to do with the rest of this mail?
Yeah.
Do you have someone else that you want to come put this up and put away? And every time I've had to say that and run into that scenario, it normally shuts it down pretty quick. And they're just like, well, hurry up, get it done. I'm like, no problem, boss. I'll be happy to. But yeah, don't be afraid if they're giving you a hard time on a certain day where it's taken more than 5 minutes to just ask them, hey, no problem, boss. What do you want me to do with this before I clock out?
Yeah, I know it's frustrating sometimes, especially being a steward. I like to try and argue back with them and tell them, "Hey, I get this time." But a good philosophy is that we don't get paid to make decisions. That's what management gets paid for. So let's let them make the decision. So that's some good advice. Put it back on them, and usually they don't know how to handle it. Really, what they mean by get off the clock is hurry up and get out of here.
Well,
So
sometimes I like to take it a little literal and have a little fun if somebody's being a jerk with me, be like, no problem. I'll just sit
yeah,
it down right there in front of my feet and I'll be like, who do you want to come grab this? I'll
yeah,
leave right this
just
second.
set it right down in the middle of the floor.
Yep, I'm ready to go. I've done it before. I'll do it again if I have to.
I like it.
And you know what? All kidding aside, if you don't know what your PM SOP is, SOP stands for Standard Operating Procedures, right? Copy of it. Ask your manager for one. Ask your steward for one. If you don't have one at your case, there should be one at your case.
Yeah, it should be in that black binder. It's called the route book.
It'll explain to you what your office duties are in the afternoon. At my station, Some carriers I've noticed in the past, when they walk in the door, they immediately clock to the office. And then they're telling me, I can get all this done in 5 minutes. If I clock to the office the second I walk in those swinging doors, I can't ever get it done in 5 minutes. And what's happening is sometimes carriers are doing street duties in that quote unquote 5 minutes of office time that you got. When you follow your SOP, you might find out that you're supposed to deal with accountables on 721 time, street time. You're supposed to be depositing your raw mail on 721 street time. So if you look at your SOP, you might be surprised to find out that some of what you're doing currently on office time should still be part of your street duties.
Yeah.
And so if you check that out and clarify that, you may even find that, you know, it may no longer be taking you 10, 12 minutes to do your PM office duties. It may only take you 4, 5, 6 minutes because you're following that and you're doing it on the right clock rate.
Yeah, definitely. So that's our fixed office time. That's a total of 33 minutes. Now, some stations still have a break in their AM. If you have a 10-minute break in the office, that would make your fixed office time 43 minutes instead of 33 minutes. So think about the this 60-minute office time that management's pushing. And let's just say you have a 10-minute AM office break. So your fixed office time is 43 minutes. That's without even touching a piece of mail. That's not even casing anything at your case. You're walking in the door, let's just say 7 o'clock is your begin tour just to make this all easy. So that means at the very minimum, you're going to be clocking to the street at 7:43. Uh, and then you still have to case all your mail. And like I said, you got 18, 8, and 70. So if you have enough volume and it's going to push you over that office, that hour office time that fictitious hour office time that they want us to make, there's no way you're going to make it. They're setting you up to fail, and it just snowballs onto the street because you don't sort your spurs in the office because they're pushing you out, and then you go to the to load time, and then they're pushing you out of the parking lot in 22 minutes, so you just throw everything in the truck, and then you get out on the street, and now your relay where you're sitting getting your mail ready for walking splits is 10 minutes because now you're trying to sort the stuff that you were meant to do in the office or in load time, and now you're being evaluated, and we just want you to articulate that to us.
Yeah, to you it
Eh,
may make sense because you're the one that understands what's going on in your office, the pressures that you may be dealing with, and inadvertently you may be pushing some of your office duties to the street. So then when you have a couple of people on that Zoom call with you during tea reap time asking, well, tell me, why did it, why did it take, 9, 10 minutes here? It looks like you only got 25 houses. And you're thinking in your mind, well, I got this truckload of mail and it's all unorganized and we got all this stuff. I don't want any carrier to lose a minute that they deserve on their route. And our job's difficult. And every NALC REIT in the Oklahoma Arkansas district completely understands that and realizes that. A lot of us still deliver mail on Saturdays, when we're able to. I know I do. And so, when I'm looking at these routes and I see some of these things, that's part of why I agreed with Casey to talk with him today on this, on this podcast episode, is just kind of send the warning out, kind of give a heads up to some carriers on some of the things that T-REAP looks at, and that if you're not using your office time, if you're not using your load time, and you're pushing it to the street, kind of what can happen, and kind of what can happen with the evaluation of your route. I don't see a ton of routes that are exceeding their estimated standard office time, which is based off of 18, 8, and
yeah, your
70
volume, yeah.
and the fixed office time. What I do see is a ton of them that are coming in under that time. And if you're a fast caser, God bless you. You do your job, do a good job, take pride in it, and have a great day. If, however, you're skipping certain essential parts of our job, like what Casey was talking about with the vehicle checks, with writing up the left notice slips. If you're skipping all these things, you're not going to get an award for saving the post office 10 minutes on office time when you're skipping these duties that they're telling us to do anyway in our handbooks and manuals. And you're going to be shortchanging your route, kind of back to the lose time, deducted time thing we talked about. So I would just encourage everybody, If you're not doing these things or you haven't been doing it, that's okay. We complete. I am totally empathetic to that. I know what this job pressures can be like. Start tomorrow. Start today with these good habits. And if it seems daunting or overwhelming, maybe you're a new CCA, maybe you're a CCA that just made regular, and maybe you haven't heard a lot of these things that me and Casey are talking about. Maybe some of this information is brand new to you. Each day, pick one or two items and just add it into your routine. That
Yeah.
way, you're not overwhelmed, but that way, you start the good habits now so that 25 years from now, you can look back and go, yeah, I had a pretty good career, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, and you can be proud of what you do. Um, all these things are in our handbooks and manuals, and it's the very same handbooks and manuals that management will crucify you for not following. So it's kind of funny, being on this side of it as a steward and or even doing route evaluations, and they're wanting to slash this time from routes. Meanwhile, they're issuing discipline like it's candy because you're not doing certain things, because you're delivering certifieds without getting them signed for. Meanwhile, we're not filling out the 3849 in the office like we're supposed to. If you get it in the office, I know it's in DPS more now than it ever was. And if it is in your DPS, you're supposed to treat it just like you got it from a clerk. That's what our handbook and manual says. So unfortunately, you'd have to fill out that 3849 at the door while you wait for the customer to come to the door. But these are all things that we should be
I
doing.
got to say one more thing on this. I got to interrupt you. This is so important. When you're at apartment complexes, Casey, and a customer has a certified letter, what are you supposed to do with that certified letter?
We have to attempt it at the door. That's what the sender paid for.
So I don't just leave notice in the box and they can drive to the post office and pick it up.
No,
Are
we
you
have.
are you sure?
I'm positive. The sender, the person that paid for that postage, and if you pay for postage on a certified with a return receipt, you're paying like $12 for that. It might even be more. So they're paying $12, and then at the end of the road, the end of the line, the last mile, what we say, whatever verbiage you're using, you're just throwing it in the mailbox or you're just leaving a left notice. You're not doing the service. We're part of a service, a public service, and we have to attempt it at the door. That's
Yeah,
our job.
and it may not just be, the county treasurer mass sending them out to everybody. It may not just be, some big law firm mailing out these certifieds, and you may think, oh, well, they probably don't want it anyway. I'll just leave notice on it. It could be a private individual sending a certified about, an estate or someone going through a divorce where they have to get this, certified mail sent to their, ex. And we're potentially delaying important matters that they need to attend to by adding extra time for that person to wait a day or two to check their box. Now they see the left notice slip. A day or two later goes by. They go up to the post office. Now they get it. You just tacked on 4, 5, 6 days to someone that's got urgent business to attend to that they paid a premium to have us do. And because we feel like we, quote unquote, don't have time at an apartment complex to take it to the door like we're supposed to, you're shortchanging your route, you're not doing your job right, and you're shortchanging that customer that paid for it.
Yeah.
So I would completely encourage everyone that if you want to change one thing out of maybe some quote unquote bad habits, if anybody is not delivering certifieds to the door at apartments, please start doing that now. You'll thank yourself later down the line. The customers will appreciate it, and you're just going to be doing yourself and your route a favor.
Yeah. And if you're on one of those routes that has an apartment that gets them like once a month and they all hit it the same day or maybe over 2 days, you can see that in your DPS, all that green. So that's for me anyway, that's whenever I immediately fill out a 3996. And I've had management before tell me to take out all of those certifieds and they'll give it to someone else and that's their overtime for the day. It
And they
kind of,
can do that. That's their decision to manage. But
yeah,
don't take it upon yourself to just go out on the route, see all these, and be like, oh, cool, here's an hour and a half of overtime. You need to ask permission. We need to notify them that you have this extra work to do. And then it's up to them to, like what Casey said, maybe they'll have somebody else take it. Maybe they'll have you do it.
yeah.
You know,
Yeah, and it kind of helps us in the public eye too. Every year that I can remember, we've been voted the most trusted government agency by the Gallup poll every year. And doing these little things, these small things throughout the day, it is our job, but it's also service. So we're going up, it's certifieds aren't always bad news. So it may be something that they've been waiting on. It may be that $100,000 check. It may, it may be something great
Inheritance.
that they're waiting on, a will. It might be a birth certificate, whatever it is, and they'll really thank you for it. So I'm glad you brought that up. Um, I guess the last thing I got in my notes anyway is whenever you're leaving the office. So you're loading up your hamper. You've kind of you don't want to take all your parcels out of the hamper and build your castle at the case or anything. You want to kind of rearrange them so you can get your mail in the hamper. But if for whatever reason your mail is over the top of that ledge, and you're stacking DPS up as tall as you are, and you can't see around it, that's not safe. You need to take two trips. And really, our handbooks and manuals tell us anything over that edge. So, I mean, I'm not saying don't get crazy with it. Your flats are just barely sticking out. That's okay. What I'm talking about is when you got two, three, four DPS trays over that edge, and you got a hand on top of it because you're afraid it's going to fall off whenever you're going down your ramp to your parking lot. You need to take two trips, because you dropped that DPS. You just added, I don't know how much of a headache to your route trying to sort that DPS.
Yeah,
Um,
or 3 trips or
to
4 trips,
a-
however long
as
it
many as
takes.
it takes. So that's a part of safety. That's a part of just doing the right thing, and making sure your mail makes it to your truck.
Yeah,
So
I've a long time ago gotten the habit. If I can put my DPS and my flats in my hamper with my tubs of spurs and my parcels and make one trip, by all means, I'm going to do that. I'm going to be efficient with my time. I take pride in what I do. I don't want to rip off the post office. I'm not a lazy worker. But if I notice the amount of parcels I have are piling over the rim of that hamper, I am not going to put my DPS trays on top. I am not going to be playing Jenga and or Legos or whatever you want to call it, stacking them up in like a pyramid and slowly inching it out the door and hoping I don't plow into somebody and knock it all over. Because that will happen. I've seen it happen. And then, like what Casey said, you're going to be behind even more. So if you were worried before about not having quote unquote enough time, you're just making it worse on yourself.
yeah,
So
for
don't
sure.
do that. Follow his advice. Take the time. Make a second trip. Grab a U cart for your flats and DPS if you have to. And if a supervisor or anybody gives you a hard time about it, hey, ask to talk to your steward.
Yeah,
Be like, sure, no problem, boss. I'll do what you're telling me, but I want to talk to my steward if I can. Let's see what they have to say about this.
yep, for sure. So after you're done with the office, you're loading your truck now. We've kind of already touched on that. So you just want to organize your truck. You want it to be your first delivery is your first parcel at the back of the door, and it's gonna go move towards your driver's seat in the back of the truck, of course. In delivery order, your parcels, you put them in there that way. I know me personally, I always have that middle door shut. Do you have that middle door shut, or you leave it open?
Yeah. A lot of times I'll have it shut. I
for
mean,
for a long time, I was opening and shutting that throughout the day, and I don't know what made me want to do it. I just left it shut one day, and I was like, I'm gonna try this out for a little bit, and I actually like it. It prevents me from leaving that mail up front or trying to bend over in my seat to reach a parcel I'm about to deliver at a mounted box. Because you do that for 30 years, you're gonna have some back and knee and neck and all kinds of problems because you're twisting and contorting to get that parcel in the back.
Yeah, I
So
quit doing that a long time ago. Whether I got that door open or shut as I'm, dismounting or, hitting some of my businesses and just hopping out and, getting back in. Yeah, I quit a long time ago, twisting around and trying to line them up there and then grab them to move them to that tray. You're going to hurt yourself. And, when you do hurt yourself, management's going to blame you, saying you weren't working safely.
oh yeah.
They're going to try to deny your workman's comp claim, and especially if you're young, you may be listening to this and going, "What? Just turning around in my seat, brother." You do it for the next 8 years. Turn around in that seat for 7,000 times in a row,
Yeah.
and see how your lower back's going to be feeling in your shoulder. Take the time to stop the vehicle, pull over, turn the vehicle off, curb your wheels if you need to, get out, go to the back, grab that mail, bring it up to the front. That's what's called a replenish. There's the reason there's a term for it because they're supposed to be doing it.
Yeah.
So yeah, keep the door shut, go around the back, grab it, bring it up front. Um, you know, there you go.
So we'll get back to driving safely in a second, but finish out your load, be organized, do the right thing, and now you're headed to the street. So you want to make sure, and this is something that kind of got brought up recently in our branch anyway, is CCAs were being told on Amazon Sundays that they don't have to follow all the driving rules on Sundays because it's not a normal delivery day. That can't be further from the truth. Whenever you're in a postal vehicle, you always have to follow traffic laws. You always have to follow policy on safety. You always have to wear a seatbelt and do all the things the correct way. There are no different rules for different days of the week. I don't know what it was, if that was a rumor, but just to address it, just in case, if your vehicle is in motion, you have to have your seatbelt on. And I always have both of them on. I know whenever you're doing mounted, if you can't reach the box to service it, you can take off that shoulder belt. You always have to leave on the lap belt.
Yeah,
I don't think there's any exceptions for that.
no,
If you're going through an intersection, you have to have the shoulder belt on no matter what. You can have the sliding door open while you're delivering mounted, but once again, once you go through an intersection, you have to close it. So I just got
and you're not driving more than 15 miles an hour,
15
and
miles.
you're not traveling more than 500 feet between each mounted mailbox.
Yeah,
If it's faster than that or more than that, you need to have the door shut and the full belt on.
yeah,
And let me tell you, any new people or newbies that are listening to this, they will take you off the clock and send you home if you get caught by safety driving with that door open with your belt off. And you potentially could lose your job. You know, the union's here to fight for you and defend your rights and protect you, but there's no reason to be doing that and put yourself in that situation where you're going to go for a time without paychecks while the whole process sorts itself out. That's not the type of, vacation anybody wants to have.
yeah. Don't put your steward in that situation because we're having to argue why you were working unsafely. And I've been there as a steward defending someone, and we will do it till the sun goes down. But that's one thing that is very hard for us to do if someone is caught. There's witnesses, there's things where carriers are not following safety policies. They got their door open, seatbelt off. I mean, we see videos all the time. I just saw one the other day of a carrier that probably hit the gas by mistake instead of the brake, and they ran into the back of this car that was parked out front, and he almost fell out of his LLV, and they just drove away. I mean, I'd hate to be that guy's steward. So think twice. This is a career. And I was at the plant forever at Westside, and I was in OJI, and I would always tell people whenever I'm training them, guys, put your seatbelt on. It takes you 2 seconds. We're here at the plant. The district manager works here. The postmaster works here. Like all these pooms work here. If any one of them saw you, you could lose your career because you wanted to save 2 seconds.
Yeah.
It's not worth it. So always do the right thing. Always follow traffic laws. We're not exempt from traffic laws. That doesn't mean we get a pass and we can park in fire lanes. It doesn't mean we can park right in front of businesses and block walking traffic. We still have to follow traffic laws. We still have to park in parking spaces. We're not exempt from anything. Um, so just to touch on that, like I said, I don't know if that's a true rumor or not, but just to address it anyway and get it out of the way. Whenever you're traveling to or even from your route, we've seen it a lot where carriers daily will stop at Brahms, and it's only for like 2 or 3 minutes. And that's something that's a little bit tricky. It's a little bit hard for us in an evaluation setting to try and convince our counterparts, that time is part of your route. On some days that may be a comfort stop. On some days that may be a sausage biscuit stop. And so, uh,
I've literally had carriers tell me that that is their, coffee break, that that's their breakfast break. And then we'll ask them, oh, okay, that's your 10-minute break. And they'll be like, no, no, that's my breakfast break. I mean, we don't get a breakfast break. It doesn't work like that. If you got to go to the bathroom, if you need a comfort stop, by all means. If you work at a station where they don't have an ice machine and maybe it's a hot day and you forgot your ice, stop. Do what you need to do to get it. I mean, there's a balance between, coming to work prepared to do our job and also realizing that, yeah, sometimes on your route, you are going to need to, make a stop to, get something to drink, to get some ice, things like that. But like what Casey was saying from the kind of the TREAP, the route inspection side, when we see that, 9 times out of 10, our counterparts jump on it and go, "What are they doing? They just left the station. Why are they going to McDonald's? We know you're not getting gas, at Mickey D's." And so sometimes we're able to successfully keep that time in if it makes sense, and there's other times where most reasonable people would look at it and say, well, they had 9 comfort stops this day. The 5-minute stop at Mickey D's in the morning, maybe that time won't get to stay in.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, and as much as we love to see a carrier that's consistent, because that's one thing I've learned is carriers are consistent. You take your breaks in the same spot every day. You go to lunch the same spot every day. We sometimes we even learn where they live just based off of their habits. But you go to your sausage biscuit stop at Brahms every morning. That's pretty glaring. We start looking at 8 week data, and you're going to the same spot every morning for 2 or 3 minutes, and we ask you about it in live week, of course, and you tell us that I already took my breaks, that's just me getting my breakfast. It's probably not going to stay in your route, and rightfully so. I mean, the service has an obligation to protect them as a business, right? But we have an obligation to protect the carriers. And there's nothing in our handbooks and manuals, I wish there was, that allowed us to get breakfast.
Hey, we're in contract negotiations. I'm going to send an email right now to Brother Renfro and ask him if we can get, a biscuit and sausage break
Yeah.
in the morning. I don't think we're going to get it. So until until we're able to achieve that through collective bargaining, I would just encourage everyone to just be aware of some of those things, of what it might, the impact it may potentially have on a route evaluation.
Yeah. And going into breaks, we kind of talk about that a little bit. There's a form in your route book called a 1564. That's the form that typically you would fill out whenever you first get on a route, or you're a new T6. You fill out your 1564, and you have all of your lunch locations on there. You have all of your break locations on there, and typically management isn't too like picky on that. You go to a spot and take your 10-minute break that's not on your 1564. I mean, they're not going to give you a removal for it. Definitely, if that's something that they want to enforce, they should tell you that. But I know in the few stations I've been in here in Oklahoma City, they don't care where you go as long as you stay within that 10 minutes for your break and your 30 minutes for your lunch, or 3 minute plus 3 minutes of wash up, so 33 minutes.
Yeah, I'd agree with Casey. That's the biggest thing is just keeping in mind your travel time to a break spot, from the break spot, and also for your lunch. I'm not talking about comfort stops, personal needs stops. You got to go to the bathroom, you ran out of water, whatever. I'm not talking about that. But those 10 and 30-minute breaks that we get, just keep in mind your travel time. I just hate anytime I run across a route where they lose that.
Yeah. So whenever you're filling out your 1564s, if you do have a spot that you like to take your break, just go ahead and put it on your 1564. Ask management for a clean copy. You can update that. They will enter that information into DOIS. They'll sign it. You leave it in your route book. And the same thing with your lunch locations. You like going to an intersection. It doesn't even have to be the address of Burger King. It can just say Burger King, or it can say the intersection, because there might be 5 different fast food places there that you like to go to. So you can just put the intersection on there.
Yeah.
And that those are examples in our M41 in our handbook. And if you guys are wondering, you can find the M41 on nalc.org. You can find it on our website, nalcbranch458.com, and you can even find it at your case in your route book. Every case should have a updated copy of the M41. If it is not an updated copy, get with your steward or management, and you can get an updated copy in there. So that's something. Update your 1564s. Take your breaks, take your lunch, and like Eric's saying, whenever you're going to lunch, just keep in mind your 30 minutes starts when you break your line of travel to the time you get back to your line of travel. It includes your travel time. So keep all of that in mind. Um, I think we're getting close to wrapping this up. Uh, just a few more things that I got on my list. Business deliveries, and whenever you're parking, I think we already talked about it a little bit. But you don't want to just pull up in front of that business, hop out, and give them the mail, and jump back in. You want to park in a parking space. We still have to abide by traffic
And if you're
laws.
able to, back into it.
Yeah,
Because and the rationale behind that is you're pulling up to the spot, you see nobody's in that spot, you see nothing's going to obstruct you from backing into it, so now it's safe to do so. Versus pulling in front end first, going and delivering the mail, coming back out to your vehicle. Now you're putting in reverse and checking your mirrors. There could be something behind you or something 6 feet behind you to where you glance away from the mirror, bam, now you just kind of reverse T-bone somebody. um,
yeah. Or if you can pull through a parking space, and pull through it, and
yeah,
you're now you're facing forward in a parking space, do that as well. Gas stations, I don't think I ever park in a normal parking space. I always park at a pump because you can just pull right out. So keep all that stuff in mind. I see people all the time pulling in forward and parking in spaces all the time.
yeah, you guys don't want to do that. I know it's, habit, like, when we're off the clock, I never back into a spot, at 7-Eleven when it's my, you know,
I do. I'm the cool
Volkswagen.
guy.
Well, Casey, you're weird, but most normal people don't. But when we're on the clock, take the little extra time and do it. And once again, everything we're talking about, in a way, kind of goes back to losing time on your route. Just think about through your day how many different businesses you may have that if you were doing it right and safely parking your vehicle like you're supposed to be, it's going to take a little extra time. On my route in Oklahoma City on North Meridian and 50th, there's a few different residential deliveries right there off of Meridian. The speed limit's 45 miles an hour. It's 4 lanes there on the road. Uh, I don't dismount that from Meridian. I will pull off onto 47th Street, secure the vehicle, get out, walk up to the house, drop the mail off, come back. Yeah, it takes about an extra 40 seconds or so. You know what's not going to happen? I'm not going to get plowed into somebody, from the rear end of the vehicle, as I'm there on Meridian. And I
Yeah.
do that for each of those houses. And that's not, I've heard some people when I've told them that, they're like, really? Really, Eric, come on, you're just, trying to drag your route out. No, I'm trying to be safe because if I do get hit, potentially a supervisor or station manager may even ask me, well, why'd you park there? There's a lot of traffic. It's right over that hill.
Yeah.
Guys, be safe with it. Take the time that you need to do that, and you won't lose that time that's needed, on your route.
Yeah, and it avoids you from getting in that accident. You're able to go home at the end of the day. And I know it's a cheesy phrase that safety tells us all the time, but your most important delivery is you going home. And that's something that all of us should be advocates for. Uh, I know recently Dan Versluis, our NBA, came to one of our branch meetings, and he told us a pretty sad story of a carrier that was dismounting on a busy street, just like Eric's talking about. And he didn't get rear ended while he was in his vehicle. He got rear ended while he was either getting out or getting in. And unfortunately, he lost his life. And those are just little things that he just pull off on a side road and do that little bit of deadhead. And it costs you 30 seconds, 45 seconds, minute, maybe, but you get to go home at the end of the day, and that's worth it. So I'll fight over management for that.
Yeah, yeah. If anybody, if you feel that a certain way you're doing in delivery currently is not safe, even though it may, quote unquote, take more, or be faster, to do it that way, like the example I gave. And if management's instructing you to do it that way, if you feel like it's unsafe and it could threaten your life or limb, that's one of those scenarios where you don't have to do it that way. You need to request to see a steward, have that conversation so they can sit down with management and, maybe educate them on the way it should be done instead of what they're telling you to do.
Yeah, and every station, if you have any safety concern you want to report, um, of course you can tell management, of course you can tell your steward, and I recommend those things on top of what I'm about to tell you, but there's a safety hazard form at every station. It should be near where your EBRs used to be, your time clocks. And it's called a 1767. It's a safety hazard form. It comes in triplicate. There's a white copy, a pink copy, and a blue copy. Maybe not in that order. I don't remember, but you fill it out, the very top box, what the safety hazard is and what you recommend on how to fix it. So if it is dismount, hey, I'm dismounting on busy street boulevard, and I think that I need to be parking here. I want to change my line of travel to this. You turn that in to management. They have one tour of duty to answer that safety problem. Of course, if you turn it in at the end of the day, they're probably going to give you an answer at the next day, but they need to be answering those quick, fast, and in a hurry.
Yeah.
So I definitely recommend you do all of those things. Fill out the 1767, notify your manager, which you're going to do when you turn it in, and then also tell your steward, give them a heads up. Hey, this is what I did. This is why I did it. So just lastly, last thing I got, and then I'll let Eric, anything he's got to in closing, is your unload process. So what is unload? Unload is there's this imaginary fence around your station. And it's typically where you drive through the gate, where you drive into the employee parking lot. That begins your unload time, and it ends whenever you clock back to the office in the PM. So you want to park your vehicle, do it safely. You want to get all of your empty trays, your empty equipment. You really don't want to leave anything in the vehicle because we all know VMF, vehicle maintenance, takes it, and you don't get your stuff back for a while. But empty all of that stuff, put it in there, and then of course you're going to look at your PM SOP and you're going to follow that and clock back to the office at the appropriate time. And again, there are zero street standards. So if they tell you you only got 7 minutes to unload your vehicle, that's BS. It's not true. So it takes what it takes when you're on the street. Do your job safely, do it the right way. Um,
And
and
I'll say one thing about that. If they tell me I only have 7 minutes and they're adamant about it, no problem. I'll just ask them when there's about 30 seconds left, what do you want me to do with the rest of these duties?
yeah,
Do you want me to clock to the office right now and, ET and go home? Or are you going to have a CCA come take it from me and finish this? I'm not going to cut corners. I'm not going to, be skipping things that need to be done in order to meet some, fictitious, imaginary, line in the sand that they've drawn. But at the end of the day, if they give an order, unless it's threatening life or limb, we need to, follow it. And then if it's improper, grieve it later. So there's more than one way of handling that. I'm a big fan of, sure, boss, what do you want me to do with it?
yeah,
And then 9 times out of 10, they tell me to just, hurry up and finish it.
yeah. So, do you have anything else? Any advice for anyone?
Guys, I'm real passionate about CCAs and letter carriers. I love everybody at my station. We have a tough job. We deal with the rain, the sleet, the snow, the hurricane, the dogs, now pandemics,
Tornadoes.
tornadoes, earthquakes, irritable bowel syndrome, all the things that letter carriers might have. Um, and this job's so difficult, and I appreciate everybody that does it with us. I love you guys. Treat this like a career. Take pride in it. Do the job right. If you don't know how, or if you need some guidance, or if you're unsure about something, reach out to your steward. Reach out to a senior carrier that you trust, especially if you're a CCA and you're a little unclear on the right way to do certain things. Um, you know, every month, second Thursday of the month, down at the Union Hall, we have a meeting. I'd encourage you all to come out to that. You can learn some of these things that we're talking about. You'll find camaraderie with the other carriers that are going through some of the same struggles you are every day. We have steward training once a month at the hall. There's a lot of other avenues that you can take advantage of to educate yourself, on how to do the job. So I guess in closing, I would just encourage people to take pride in what we do, treat it like a career, and just be safe out there.
Yeah. And since I mentioned tornadoes, it is that season, and that's something that I always said in my station in that safety huddle talk is pay attention to the customers you have that do have storm celars in the front of their house, or maybe if you deliver to a fire department or a school or a business that you know has a storm shelter. um, we're the mailman, we're the letter carrier, I guess I should say. uh, they will let you go in there. So maybe talk to them beforehand, say, hey, it's tornado season, do you mind if I come by here if I need to? So keep that in the back of your head. Be safe, and do the right thing. Thanks, Eric, for talking to me about this. We're actually here at state convention in Lawton, so it's about 7:30. Whenever we're ending this, we're gonna go grab something to eat.
Amen.